silence the day, that want to make you feel less than the call of God on your life. Zacchaeus was a tax collector, and back then and like today, nobody likes tax collectors. Today we call them IRS. Back then they were called by name, right? So the people didn't like the man. But Jesus saw beyond what they saw. They saw from the surface. Jesus saw what he formed. Zacchaeus was after Jesus. So he ignored that, right? And what I love about Zacchaeus too, he didn't respond. You don't see a response from Zacchaeus saying, hey, shut up, I'm gonna charge you some more taxes. All the pettiness was out of his system. You have to know there's some things that are not worth you responding, because you have the audience of the one that matters. You don't need to go back and forth, tit-tat, none of that. Let God show up and let the fruit of your life respond. All right. Then it says, then Zacchaeus stood and said to the Lord, look, Lord, I give half of my goods to the poor. And if I have taken anything from anyone by false accusation, I restore fourfold. Zacchaeus is not trying to prove to God that my works are worthy. He has come to a place, you see, when it says he received Jesus joyfully, he has come to a place where he's like, I know better. Money no longer has me. Because prior to Zacchaeus, there was another rich man in Luke 18 that was trying to find Jesus, came to him and was talking about the things that Jesus is like, but you still got some bondage. He's like, look, Lord, I do this, I do that, I follow these commandments. And then Jesus says, all right, that's good. Now sell everything you've got, give to the poor. He could not handle that one. But here's the crazy thing. It says it grieved him. He walked away from the instruction, but he was bitter. He was grieved. He knew that the decision he made was not the right one. But he did not know. He was wrestling with holding on to what kept him in bondage. Or can I take the risk of following Jesus? But he didn't even pay attention to how he was feeling. The thing that should keep him happy, like, oh no, I'm not selling. If choosing you means I have to sell all my things, I'm keeping my things. But why are you grieved? Because you know the truth. And you know that this is love. Jesus is not trying to take from you. But that thing already has you. It has a stronghold on your life. So Jesus is after the bondage, not the thing. So when Zacchaeus comes to Jesus one chapter later, and he says, I sell, what was it, half of his things? If Jesus really cared about the money, he'd be like, Zacchaeus, sell everything. Actually, there's still 50%. Sell that too. But Jesus looked at a man who was not in bondage, who was not a slave to money. He was not a slave to things anymore. So Jesus responds, and Jesus said to him, today salvation has come to this house, because he, Zacchaeus, is also the son of Abraham. For the Son of Man has come to seek and to save that which was lost. Oh, so beautiful. Now, as they heard these things, who are the disciples, right? He spoke another parable because he was near Jerusalem and because they thought the kingdom of God would appear immediately. There were many disciples that followed Jesus for the wrong reasons, because they thought he was here to establish his kingdom immediately. And Jesus is about to bring them into a parable to say, hey, no, you got a part to play. This is not just about the kingdom appearing immediately. So let me explain this to you in a parable. First of all, you just watch this man who everyone has called a sinner. He's not liked in society and all of that. And you have watched him come into salvation. So I want to show you something. Let me share this parable with you. And so he says, therefore he said, a certain nobleman went into a far country to receive for himself a kingdom and to return. So he called 10 of his servants, delivered to them 10 minas, and said to them, do business till I come. Now you may be seated. I'm going to give you some context. We have been in a series called God and Business. Just happened organically, right? Started 2 weeks ago with our pastor. Can we acknowledge our pastors in the house? Acknowledge our senior pastors, Pastor Teray Roberts, Pastor Sarah Jakes Roberts. So we started this series, and in this text, the parts I did not read is when it says that he called 10 of his servants and gave them 10 minas, he gave each of them individually 1 mina, right? And it's interesting because they had different results. Someone took 1 mina and turned it into 10 minas. Mina is currency. It was about 3 months of wages, I believe, at the time. It's a currency. So one person took 1 mina, turned it into 10 minas. Another took 1 mina, turned it into 5. Another took 1 mina, turned it into 1. And then there were some just didn't do nothing about the minas, right? Naturally, the second person, I believe, took 5 and took 1, turned it into 5. The third person had 1 and came to the master and said, you know what, I feared you. And so I did nothing with it. I put it in a handkerchief. And there's another 7 that we don't even hear about what they did with their minas, right? So maybe they had some ignorance issues right there. But then the third one is interesting because he said, I feared you, so I did nothing with it. Put it in a handkerchief. It's interesting because that's how we relate to God sometimes. There is a difference. This kind of fear is when you are afraid, not the fear of the Lord. When you have this concept of being afraid of God, then when it comes to, you're not motivated to really be who he's called you to be. Because it's just like, man, you're more driven by, I don't really want to disobey you, but like, I'm not really trying to change either, so I'm just stuck. Because I'm afraid of you. And in being afraid, what does that cause? It causes you to hide. Starting in the Garden of Eden. The first thing they did when they knew they were naked and afraid, they hid. Shame is always connected to that type of fear. And so how can you be open to being used by God when you're also hiding? So it's interesting that he put the mina, he hid the mina in a handkerchief. Because could that also represent how he's covering himself? Because he has this perspective, this flawed perspective of God that I feared you, so I did nothing. Like I said earlier, love is the greatest motivator for change. Love is the greatest motivator to be who God called you to be. If you live from this place of rules and regulations according to the law, you would always break it. Because there is no relationship there. It's just checklists. Okay, my boss told me to do this. All right. But there's no relationship. So if I miss it, his love is, he loves me still. But when it's relationship, it's like, man, I don't want to hurt this person. I don't want to disappoint this person. We walk together. And I recognize how much you love me. So Lord, help me. Let's figure this out together. But I don't want to jump into that area yet, right?